Welcome to the Empress Unfiltered. Today, I want to talk about something that nobody really prepares you for when you decide to open a business, and that is uncertainty. And I'm not talking about like the cute inspirational quote of like how everything works out version of uncertainty and like just take a leap and the vision will appear. I'm talking about real uncertainty. I'm talking about the ability of like, oh, I made $6,000 in 2 hours and then I made $111 the next day. I'm talking about inventory, rent, product invoices, device payments, insurance, software marketing, and I still don't know exactly what my week is fully going to look like type of uncertainty. The kind of uncertainty that makes you question everything. And honestly, this episode is kind of a little bit of a continuation of my first podcast when I first talked about the difference between being 9 to 5 broke and business broke, because these two things are not the same. And I say 9 to 5 broke as a joke, but basically what it means is like, even when you were stressed or like you feel like you were low on, like you had a small budget, there was still some predictability of where your money was coming from. And for example, for me, like I always knew how much was coming. I knew that if I showed up, I clocked in, I did my job, I survived my shifts, my money was going to come. But business broke is a completely different situation. It's when the money can be there one day and then be completely gone the next. Business broke is when you can have a record breaking day and then still be stressed because you know how much is due and how much is coming out. Business broke is when the people on the outside see you posting the treatments, the content, the events, and oh, she's doing amazing. And yes, you are. However, behind the scenes, you're also calculating invoice, product cost, rent, supplies, marketing costs, and the fact that nothing in business is guaranteed. And that's the part that people don't always understand. You can be making more money than you've ever made before and still feel more financially exposed than you've ever felt before in business. Because as a business owner, it's not just about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. It's about how much you are able to reinvest and how much it costs, even how much it costs to keep the doors open, essentially. It's about learning how to stay emotionally regulated when the numbers are not predictable, and that's uncertainty. And that has been one of the biggest lessons for me, because I can be honest, I was not a risk taker. I was used to structure. I came from healthcare. I came from systems. I came from doing my job, getting paid, repeating the cycle. And yes, healthcare is stressful, healthcare is exhausting, and healthcare will burn you out in ways people cannot really understand unless they've lived it. But business is a completely different, it's a different realm. There's no guaranteed paycheck. There's nobody coming to save you. There's no department that handles everything for you. When you open a business, you become the provider, the marketer, the receptionist, the content creator, the inventory manager, the checkout person, the customer service department, the strategist, the visionary, and even the janitor in your space. And I'm not saying that to discourage anyone. I'm saying this because I think we need to be honest about what it really takes to open a med spa and what it takes to operate a business, especially in this industry. Because when we look at aesthetics, what we see online is the glamorous side of it. We see the pretty treatment rooms, you see the branding, you see the syringes, the lasers, the glowing skin, the before and afters, and the luxury vibe. But what you don't always see is the cost of product that's actively sitting in your fridge. You don't see the invoice that's attached to the laser. You don't see the rent that's due before you even know like how your month's gonna go. And you don't see the anxiety of the slow days. You don't see the emotional crash after a big sales day when you realize, okay, that was amazing, but now I need to do this consistently. And that's where the uncertainty comes in. Because as a business owner, you have to learn how to not let one slow day make you spiral. And you have to also learn how to not make one amazing day make you reckless. You have to learn how to hold both. You have to learn how to balance the highs and lows, the full books and the empty schedule, the $6,000 in 2 hours and the $111 the very next day, because both can coexist in business at the exact same time. And sometimes within the same week, within the same 48 hours, and I know because I've lived it. And that does not mean you're failing, it means you're building. And that is a hard mindset shift that I had to understand, that business income is not linear. In 9 to 5, money comes usually in a straight line. If you're salary, you work these hours, you get this check, you budget around your check. But in business, money comes in waves. Sometimes it pours, and then sometimes it trickles. And then sometimes it feels like nothing is moving. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, you're like, boom, busy. And multiple opportunities and collaborations and things come in, and it's beautiful. But if your nervous system is addicted to predictability, these waves can be so scary and they feel very terrifying. And I had to ask myself, can I be the type of woman and provider who doesn't panic every time the wave pulls back? Because this is the reality of uncertainty, and this is the reality of uncertainty in business. It is the space between what you have done and what has not fully been manifested yet. It is basically the gap between effort and result. It is posting content and not knowing who's watching, but hoping it's being seen by the people who relate. And it is investing in your business before any return comes back. It is buying product before the appointments are booked, and it is paying rent before the month is profitable. It is showing up with faith and strategy at the exact same time. And that's another thing I want to talk about. So manifestation and faith is beautiful, but faith without strategy is chaos. And strategy without faith can be basically rigid and fearful. You need both to coexist. You need to be able to basically manifest and believe you're meant to build this, but you also at the same time need to be like, okay, what are my numbers? What is my overhead? What am I bringing in weekly? What offers are actually selling? What services give the best profit margins when you have a med spa? And what am I spending money on that is not bringing me any return? Because being comfortable with uncertainty does not mean being careless. It does not mean ignoring your bank account. It does not mean pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means learning how to look at reality without letting the reality destroy your vision. And that is a skill that you can say I am still actively learning. Because there have been days where I've looked at everything and thought, what do I do? And there have been moments where, I mean, this is unfiltered, where I can be transparent and I can say, like, there's been moments in this business where you could say I missed the paycheck, where I thought maybe I should have waited before I quit my job. Maybe I should have saved more before I opened this med spa. And maybe I could have done things differently. But at the same time, there's also been amazing moments where a client comes in, trusts me with their face, with their confidence, shares their story. And that's the duality of it. Business will humble you and also confirm this is what you're supposed to be doing in the exact same week. It'll make you cry in your car and give you a moment where you're like, oh my God, I've created this, but it will also stretch you financially, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And if you're not prepared for that uncertainty, you're going to interpret slow days as failure. But slow days are also data, it's a season of data that you need to look at. Because slow is showing you what marketing needs to improve. It's showing you that your offer may not be clear. It's showing you that sometimes you need to optimize your systems. And at the same time, it's also showing you if you're relying on one service over another, one audience, one platform, and one source of income, instead of being like, I need to focus on this, this, and this. And sometimes slow is also showing where your business is lacking and where you can improve. And you need to be able to grasp this and not spiral. And that part is hard, especially when business is personal. So for me, like, the Empress LA is very personal. It's not just a space that I just willy-nilly was like, let me open. It's a piece of me. I put my soul in this. It's my energy, my who I am. It's my vision, my late nights, my prayers, everything that I ever wanted, I put into this. So when business feels uncertain, for me over the last year, it felt like I was uncertain. When there were no sales, it felt like I was being rejected. When content did not perform, it felt like I was invisible. But what you need to understand is, and like what people need to realize when they open a business, is that you cannot attach your identity to every business fluctuation. Because if you do, you're going to get emotionally exhausted. A slow day does not mean that you are not talented. A slow week does not mean you made the wrong decision. A quiet post does not mean nobody cares. And a low income day does not increase a big income day either. It does not erase that. It is, a hard month does not mean a vision is dead. It means I need to regulate, reassess, and respond, not react. And that is the difference. Reacting looks like panic discounting. Reacting can look like throwing random specials because you're freaking out. And reacting looks like buying more things to feel productive and comparing yourself to other businesses. Reacting, you're making decisions from fear. And responding is different. Responding says, okay, what is actually happening? Where did the money come from this month? what services sold the most, what content is actually bringing people in, what am I avoiding, what needs to be simplified, and what can I do today without draining myself, what can I promote that already exists that I have, and what relationships or collaborations can I nurture. And that is how you build business maturity. And honestly, I think business maturity is learning how to not be dramatic with your own dream, because your dream needs you to be steady. You need to be emotionally regulated. Your business does not need you to panic every time the numbers dip. Your business needs leadership. And leadership does not mean pretending that you're not scared. Leadership means being scared but still making grounded decisions. And that is a version of me that would have wanted, there was a version of me that would have wanted everything to feel safe before I moved, before I posted, before I invested in this, before I opened, before I launched, before I said yes. But entrepreneurship doesn't really look like that. You do not get a full map. You just have to start walking. Nobody has a manual on how to do this. You go a few steps, and then you take more steps, and then more is revealed. It's not a straight path, and that's the uncomfortable level of uncertainty, especially for somebody who like me likes to control everything. Having a business makes you surrender control when you're still requiring responsibility. And that is the wildest part of all of this. Because you can't control everything. You can't control algorithms of who sees your posts. You can't control the economy. You can't control who books, who cancels, who ghosts, who supports, and who watches silently. What you can control, though, is consistency. You can control your customer experience. You can control your education. You can control your follow-up with your patients. You can control your offers, control your energy, and you can control how fast you get back up, even on the slow days or even when you feel like you're spiraling. And that's when your power comes back, because uncertainty makes you feel powerless when you focus on what you can't control. But uncertainty becomes manageable when you focus on what you can do next. Not what if this fails, not what if nobody books, not what if I made a mistake, not what is the next, well, not going around in a circle. But you really need to do is focus on what can you do. So what can I post? What can I follow up? Who do I need to call? And you need to stop making decisions from exhaustion, because rest is also part of business too. And I don't think that's talked about enough. And I know that sounds simple, but in reality, it's not. When you own a business, it can feel like you always need to be doing something. And it's like you're constantly like, well, if I'm not posting, like I should be cleaning. If I'm not cleaning, I should be ordering. If I'm not ordering, I should be networking. If I'm not networking, I should be planning. And then you wonder why you're disassociating when you get in your car at home. It's because your nervous system is fried. And your nervous system, when it's fried, makes uncertainty feel 10 times worse. And it'll make a normal day feel like doom, a normal bill feel like danger, and a normal business problem feel like collapse if you're not emotionally regulated. So getting comfortable in uncertainty is basically learning how to take care of yourself while you're dealing with all of this. Because your business, if I've learned anything, your business reflects your nervous system. And if you're frantic, you make frantic decisions. And if you're desperate, your marketing will feel desperate. And if you're burnt out, your creativity disappears. And in this field, creativity is everything. And if you're in constant survival mode, you can't hear your intuition clearly. And that's been a huge lesson for me over the last year, because I am ambitious as hell, and I push and I grind and I carry so much. But just because I carry it does not mean I should carry it that way forever. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs or people in business, especially women, moms like myself, healthcare providers, or people looking to transition into a med spa or a business, we're used to focusing or functioning under pressure, and we perform while we're exhausted. And we show up even when we're overwhelmed, and we know how to make it look good while internally we're like, what the hell is going on? But sustainable business requires more than just survival. It requires systems, it requires boundaries, it requires knowing your numbers. It requires the ability to say no. It requires not making every opportunity an emergency. It requires understanding that revenue is not the same thing as profit. And that's a painful lesson, because when you have a big day, you're like, damn, I did good. I made money. But then you subtract product costs, you subtract fees, you subtract rent, you subtract supplies, you subtract debt, and you subtract the fact that you're like, oh, I also need to restock. And then you realize, okay, I need to be even more intentional. However, that's not failure. That's financial maturity in business, and the business will force you into financial maturity fast. You cannot just look at money emotionally while you run a business. You have to look at it strategically. What is coming in? You have to look at what's going out, what is urgent, what can wait, what investments will actually generate revenue, and what am I paying for because I'm scared to let it go, or what am I buying because I think it will help bring more people in. And that's, you need to focus on not having a million different offerings, but focusing on key systems and key things that you do, because business, especially aesthetics, it's easy to feel like you need more to be more. And when I mean that, I mean like more devices, more products, more inventory, more branding, more everything. However, growth requires, and yes, I get it, growth requires investment, but like sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is focus on what you already have instead of constantly adding more, and focus on offering services, like key things, and focus on systems that have already made your business profitable instead of feeling like you have to add on this and this and this. And that's another thing I wish people talked about more, because uncertainty can make you chase. You start basically chasing the next service, the next product, the next trend, the next idea. But sometimes being comfortable in uncertainty forces you to anchor. You need to come back to the foundation. You need to ask, what is it that I want this business to be known for? What is my signature? What is my client experience? And what do I want people to feel when they walk into my space? And what am I problem solving? And what transformation am I offering? Because when you are clear, uncertainty does not disappear. However, it becomes a lot easier to navigate. You basically stop throwing random things at the wall and you start moving with intention towards your goals. And that is the energy that I'm bringing into the next season of business. Not panicking, not proving, not overextending myself, but grounded, strategic Empress energy. Because being an Empress in business does not mean everything is perfect. It means I've learned how to sit and be okay with the ups and downs. And it means that yes, there's still chaos, but I'm grounded, and a slow day is pushing me towards more productive and busy days, because I'm analyzing whatever systems don't work and how to move forward. So if I've explained anything today, at least I hope I have, it's that you have to be comfortable in uncertainty, because uncertainty is part of owning a business. And yes, there are days where you're going to feel unstoppable and on top of the world, but you're also going to have days where you question everything. And there's days where money comes fast, and then there's days when it feels like nothing moves. And there's also days where you feel like people are clapping for you, and then you feel like it's total silence the next, and you feel completely alone. And you have to get comfortable in the waves and not abandon the vision of why you wanted your small business or med spa to begin with. And you can't sit there and compare yourself to other people's success, because everybody is on their own timeline, and your business is going to flow in its own rhythm. And once you stop expecting every day to be the same, you'll stop mentally spiraling and interpreting fluctuation as failure, because it's not. And that is really the difference between like 9 to 5 and business, because you need to get out of that employee mindset where generated money feels safe, and you need to get into a business mindset where you can be like, I multiply and things come in waves. And a slow day is information, not failure. And having a business is having a mindset where it's like, I create structure, and that transition is not easy. I'm still actively learning it. It's still up and down, where sometimes even I still mentally spiral, but it's getting comfortable in in the waves and the ups and downs, and knowing that things are going to be okay even on the hard days. So business broke is definitely different from 9 to 5, but you have to keep going, and that's key.